Hey guys, this is Jason at Ham Radio 2.0, live from the Ham Shack. My call sign's KC5HWB. I'd like to take a couple of seconds here to tell you about the Duke City Ham Fest in August of 2016, August 12th to the 14th. And we're going to be having a 3-day show out there. It's going to be a great event. You're going to have auctions on Friday nights and Saturday DX contesting with the whole breakfast Saturday morning. And a Saturday evening banquet that's kind of like a end of the day type show. And they've got activities for the youth on Sunday and a new ham workshop and another breakfast on Sunday morning as well. So this ought to be a really great show. Anytime you get a ham fest that's a 3-day event, it's usually pretty hefty to come out there and look at. So it's very well attended. It's got a great following on their Twitter account and their Facebook page, and it's just going to be an all-around good ham fest. So if you're anywhere near the Albuquerque area from August 12th to 14th, I highly recommend you stop by the Duke City Ham Fest. For more information, you can find their website at dukecityhamfest.org, and you can follow them on Twitter and their Facebook page as well. So hope to see you there. 73. This is Jason with Ham Radio 2.0. I'll be QRT. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good night. Welcome to Ham Radio 2.0, live from the Ham Shack. I am Jason, KC5HWB, and this will be a first. This will be episode 52. No, I take that back. It's episode 53. This is episode 53. The DSTAR Forum at the Ham Holiday in Oklahoma City in July of 2016. So there's a story behind that. I got a new sign made here. I got this made at Hamcom. I ordered it at Hamcom, and it came in last week when I was out of town. It's got my logo on it, of course, and it's got colors that change. Gift4hams.com made that. They did a fantastic job on it. I ordered a plaque from them at Dayton in 2014 when I was there with my call sign and a tower behind it. So it's a vertical sign rather than a horizontal one like this. It's a vertical, 6x8 or something like that with my call sign in front of it. It looked really good. So when I found them at... they're the ones who do all the cool wood carving boxes that you see at some of the bigger shows. When I found them at Hamcom, I decided to order one because I wanted to put it in the background here. So you should see that in the background on most of my videos from now on. I'm going to turn like that so I'm not blocking it. But did a really good job there. So, Ham Holiday 2016. This was the second time I was at Ham Holiday. I went in 2014, and man, I was just starting out then. I was starting out with Grapevine Amateur Radio then, and I just had one table, and it was kind of a smaller show. It was at a different hotel this year, which was a more updated hotel than it was when I was there last time, but it was still kind of a small, it was a small room. There was a lot of people there. There was quite a few people there, but it was a small room. And boy, I tell you what, man, I had the worst luck. Not because of the Ham Fest, really. I just had the worst luck in Oklahoma this week. We pulled in to the Ham Fest right before closing Friday evening, and my truck broke down. I thought the clutch had gone out, and it turns out it's not the clutch. It's going to be something in the rear drive axle. And man, right as we pulled in, so we were lucky. We didn't get stranded on the road. My buddy Corey that goes with me to a lot of the Hamfest, KG5AHI, he was a real trooper. He helped me out quite a bit this weekend. But so we pulled into the Hamfest in the truck, and basically just like what you would expect a clutch to go out feeling. That's why I thought it was the clutch at first, and you put it in gear and it wouldn't go anywhere. So we parked there and went in and tried to set up, and it was a little bit too late by the time we got there to set up our stuff, so we set up the next morning. did the show. I called around some mechanic shops. Couldn't really find anybody open on the weekend, so I got kind of stuck there. Corey went home on Sunday. He had some family come get him on Sunday. And I got stuck there until Tuesday trying to get a mechanic to look at my truck. And I got it towed up there and somebody look at it, but they haven't fixed it yet. So, in fact, I'm probably going to have it towed elsewhere because the place that I took it's not... I want to get a second opinion, basically. But I was there. I didn't get home until my dad came and got me. Actually, on I booked a room Saturday and Sunday night, and I ended up booking Monday night. And I came home on Tuesday. I got home about 11 p.m. Tuesday night, and so I was gone from Friday night to Tuesday night, and I was supposed to be back Saturday night. So that was no fun, but I don't know. I guess being out on the road so much, it's bound to happen. That's the first time I've ever been stranded at a ham fest, but I got to know that hotel really well. Where it was at the Biltmore Hotel there in northern Oklahoma City, and boy, I got to know that hotel pretty well. I'll remember that next year if I go back to Ham Holiday. But anyway, I only got a chance to record one forum at Ham Holiday. They didn't have very many forums. A buddy of mine, Mark AE5DN, I say he's not a friend really. He's a guy I've talked to on DMR. I've actually never met him in person. He gave a DMR forum, but I missed that one. It was really busy that morning, and I didn't get a chance to catch that one. So the only one I got a chance to catch was the DSTAR forum. And the cool thing about a DSTAR forum is I've never caught a DSTAR forum before. I've never actually used DSTAR before. So I sat there and watched this hour-long presentation, and I actually learned a few things about DSTAR, about stuff you could do with DSTAR. So you're probably going to see some DSTAR videos upcoming on Ham Radio 2.0 because I just want to try everything that's new in ham radio. And DSTAR's not new. DSTAR's been around in ham radio for a long time, but there's been new advances made to it over the last, I don't know, few years. There's new radios that have come out. There's still some things that you can do with DSTAR that you can't do with DMR or with Fusion. So, there's niches to each digital format that it doesn't sound as good. The guy says throughout the whole forum, he's like, yeah, it doesn't sound as good as DMR or Fusion, but you can do this with it, which DMR and Fusion won't do. So we'll get to see some of that in the video as well. But really appreciate Dave. And I forget Dave's call sign. I just looked it up a minute ago. It's not in his email signature. But you'll see his call sign on the video that's fixing to start. I just don't remember what it is right now. But thanks a lot to Dave for allowing me to record and post this DSTAR forum on my video series. And I'm looking forward to getting more stuff like this upcoming. So these types of forums and tech talks and lectures, this is exactly the type of stuff that I'm going to be portraying more often on Ham Radio 2.0. These are very popular, and the radio unboxings seem to be my two most popular avenues, except for maybe a D-Expedition. I'm going back to Costa Rica in October, so anybody that wants to sponsor me to go back to Costa Rica, let me know how I can promote your product, website, and your business on my Costa Rica video. So especially if you make like an antenna or connectors or something like that. So that's always good to see. But let's take a look at the DSTAR video from Ham Holiday 2016. If you found me on YouTube, hit up my website at livefromthehamshack.tv, where you can find all of the episodes I've done to date. This is episode 53, like I said a minute ago. And I've got several more episodes that have pretty much already been done and recorded and are just about to be posted. I post about one a week, sometimes more often than that, sometimes longer than that, but usually average about one a week. So be looking for new episodes on most Sundays. 73, guys. Let's take a look at the DSTAR forum, Ham Holiday 2016.
All right, let's get started. Hopefully it'll get cooler, but I doubt it. I'm Dave Downing. My call is WD5G. Hey, can we get it quiet in the back, please? And I've got a lot of material to cover, so we're going to kind of roll through this pretty quick. So I'll kind of stop periodically, and at that point we'll see if we got any questions, and then we'll pick it up. And I'll give you as much as you want if you want to stick around. So I shamelessly plagiarized this presentation, and I got it from John Davis with his consent, and he presents this at Dayton every year and does an excellent job. So rather than reinvent the wheel, I thought I'd start with this. So how many of you currently own a DSTAR capable radio? Oh, quite a few actually, good. Well, what we're going to do is talk about its origins, a little bit about the protocols involved, and dispel a lot of rumors and things that exist about whether or not it's proprietary and what parts are and aren't, and how all this goes together. And I'll give you a bunch of alternatives to setting up and operating DSTAR if you don't happen to live within the footprint of a repeater. So DSTAR was an open standard developed by the Japan Amateur Radio League, and I guess in concert with Icom, since they're co-located. And then I guess about 7 or 8 years ago, we saw the first DSTAR radios, and they've gone through a process of evolution since then, and they've gotten better and better. And I'll explain some of those things to you and why you might want one of the newer ones. The vocoder is the only thing that's really proprietary. It's from a company called VSI. And what the vocoder does is takes a binary stream and says, oh, that should have said car, and will produce a syllable or some portion of it and recreate it as audio. And what it does is it allows voice compression and data compression, so you get more for the existing amount of bandwidth you have. Latest one's out of the 3000 series chips, and they sound pretty good. All right, here's one of the main things. This is a neat slide that shows the benefit of digital versus analog. Everybody's experienced somebody getting out of range in a repeater and the picket fencing effect. With digital, you don't get that. It's 100% all the way up, and then there's this rapid drop off. And there's another chart that actually shows the digital exceeding this point on the analog. So you get some great voice quality. Now, one of the things about DSTAR compared to DMR and Yaesu Fusion is it doesn't sound quite as good, but it's perfectly acceptable. But it has many other advantages, which we'll go into. Well, this shows the benefit of going to digital. Notice the bandwidth is significantly smaller. This gives us ability to provide audio and digital in the same voice stream path. So you can have a voice session going on and concurrently be transferring data.
Can you move your mic up a little bit?
Oh. Is that better? Am I not talking loud enough, or you say it's not being recorded loud enough?
I think it's even being amplified.
There's a microphone to your right,
No, this microphone for the recording.
but the other microphone's on.
Can you not hear me? I can speak up. Okay, here we go. So we talked about the advantage, the narrower bandwidth, and the ability to concurrently send data and voice. And here's a comparison of the modes. I don't know how accurate those numbers are, how many people are involved in it, but DSTAR is one of the more mature protocols that we use for digital voice in amateur radio. It's been around a long time, and it has, as a result of that, it's been improved to the point where it's pretty functional. Does pretty much what you want. We're going to talk a lot about repeater linking here in a little bit, about what you can and can't do and the differences between modes. I said it can transmit data, digital data. It can do that, but I will caveat that with it's pretty slow. It's not what we expect in today's network speeds. Programming, like all of them, it can be done from the front panel, but generally it's complex enough that you really want to use the provided software from Icom or the RT system stuff. And that's really the Cadillac, I think. This is what we talked about with the modulation and the bandwidth and throughput. And everybody understand what forward error correction is? Or anybody have a question about it? If you don't, what that means is that even though something became garbled or had symbol transpositions along the path, the other end says, oh, that's not right, and inserts the right thing so that it's as if nothing ever happened. Our brains have the ability to do that. You hear somebody say the wrong word and you say, that's not what he meant. The other thing back at the bottom there was you can operate through a repeater, you can operate simplex, or through any number of these other little devices we have up here that I'm going to show you. And like most demos, I hope it works, but it doesn't always. And here's the part I was saying about simultaneously transmitting voice and data. And they talk about the GPS. DSTAR does not have APRS capability. Almost all the radios you'll find today have a GPS built in them, but it sends out GPS positioning data that gets interpreted and translated and put out onto the iGate network in APRS to make it legitimate APRS data. So if you're driving down the road and you're talking to somebody and you have it set up to do DPRS, it's called, it'll send that out and people will see that just as if you were a regular APRS station. And this is all done with a couple of different kinds of networks. D+ is kind of one of the more important ones and the ones that a lot of people have gone to. And I'll show you here in a minute what some of those look like. It's pretty amazing how much activity is out there. And the last thing we're going to talk about here a little bit later, and I'll show you some pictures and a demo of it, is things called dongles and DVAPs and hotspots. Now, I'm pretty sure that not many of you live within the footprint of a DSTAR repeater. Is that correct? Anybody, any exceptions here? Norman and maybe 30 miles south, you're good to go there with the W5TC at OU.
There's one in Blanchard too.
Yeah, but it's fairly low, I understand. As you can see, there's been substantial growth in the number of DSTAR repeaters. And actually, all the other protocols are seeing similar growth as well. This year at Dayton, there was something new announced. The long-awaited Kenwood HT that does DSTAR. We saw the thing. It was in a glass case, but nobody could touch it except that one Yaesu employee. So they said it's due to be out the fourth quarter this year. I would anticipate next year sometime.
And they called it DSTAR?
Yes. I don't think it's got a nomenclature yet. It's so new. But it's got a beautiful color display on it, too.
Is it Kenwood?
Kenwood. Mm-hmm. They've been talking about it for quite a while, and finally it's, I guess, mature. At least they had the body of it. Now, what was inside, maybe that's why we couldn't touch it. It might have been hollow. So. And we're going to talk about, go into DVAPs. The DVAP's a cool thing because that's the thing that will let you on your house or your hotel room, if you're on a trip or in a car, lets you have continuous access. And we're going to tie that together with a demo of a thing called the DV4 Mini. How many of you know about a DV4 Mini? Pretty cool stuff. In our region, everything's pretty much 70 centimeter. I guess in the larger areas you might find some 2-meter DSTAR, but here it's all going to be 440. Another important thing I mentioned about all the DSTAR radios being data capable, as it says down at the bottom, there's a built-in serial port on them. And they all have the GPS. This is kind of the original DSTAR radio. This was sold as a regular FM radio, a heavy-duty model, but you had to buy a UT 118, I think it is, that was almost as expensive as the radio, so it really wasn't a good cost-benefit there. Plus, it was a real pain to program, from what I understand. The ID800, I think, came along a little later. That's it at the top, and that was a mobile with a detachable faceplate. Again, it was the first generation. This one, the 880H down there, is just recently been discontinued, but there's still a lot of them on there. Works very well. And Richard has some at main trading for like $249, which is a smoking deal after the manufacturer rebate. The 2820 was the high-end mobile. That's it on the bottom right there. And it was discontinued maybe 3 or 4 years ago. A very nice radio. But what's the Cadillac is this guy right here, the ID 5100. Even if you never used it for DSTAR, that's a wonderful mobile radio. It's got a lot of cool features and just works very, very well. But we'll cover that in detail here a little bit later.
Was the 7100 similar to that?
No, the 7100 is an HF radio, HF, VHF, and UHF, and has DSTAR capability. So it's kind of a different marketplace. But here's the HT line. The 91 was the first one you see up there, and it worked pretty well. They came out with a 9200. It was an upgrade. I think it was more waterproof and ruggedized. And then an 80, and I don't think they ever sold many of the 80s. But then the ones that came out after that that are most recent are these guys. And these are a pretty good deal. You can get these typically for like $200 or $195, brand new. It's UHF only, but in most cases, if you're going to be using a hotspot at home or in your car, that's adequate. The next step up the line is the ID 51A, which is really a fine HT. That's what that is right there. Again, it has the serial port capability. It has a GPS built in. And then there's several iterations of that. A Plus model came out, and the Plus model has a lot better functionality as far as using reflectors. Makes it much easier. That doesn't exist in the earlier models, and if you buy a 51A, it's not upgradable to a 51A Plus or a Anniversary Edition. If you're looking for a great deal on the 51A Anniversary, Richard has them for like $249. And the advantage of buying that one is that it comes with that really fancy extended antenna with the loading coil. Yeah, there you go, like that. That a lot of people tried to buy separately and can't do it. So that's a smoking deal. These guys are really cool, but they were very, very expensive and they never sold many. This guy can send faster data rates up to 1200, but it operates at 1.2 gig. I don't think there's ever been one in the metro here that's been operational that I've known of. Probably not even in the state. Georgia got a grant from the government and used it for emergency services. So they've got a lot of Georgia networked using those things. Any questions about equipment so far? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got one at Elk City running 1.2 gig.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
No kidding. I didn't know that. How long's that been up?
Oh, 3 years.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And what's the call?
It's K5ELK.
Okay. Oh, I thought that was out west.
Yeah, it is. Elk City.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear about it. I thought you said Del City.
Elk City.
I got you.
Elk City.
And
2 gig is amazing propagation.
oh, yeah. This is what the repeater stack looks like, but not all of them that you see are fielded or populated this way. There's a repeater controller, then there's the 1.2 module, then there's the 440 module, then there's a 2 meter module. So you can mix and match, but you must have the controller. And then to make it fully functional, you need a PC running the gateway software, IRC, DDB, or one of the variations. This is a really neat thing. It's a little tiny dongle, as you can see, like this. So you can take this and this laptop, and I'm probably going to show you that later if we have time. You plug this in and you can play DSTAR, connecting to repeaters anywhere in the world, to other reflectors. And reflectors are much like, if you were in the previous session, the notion of rooms. There are, in the reflectors right now, I think there are up to 76 reflectors worldwide, and each one of those can have like 4 or 5 modules to it. So it's a significant number. We'll pop up the list here and show you that in a few minutes and some sources for finding that. But this works really, really well. You just need a headset, you know, a USB speaker mic, plug it into the computer, plug this in. As long as you have internet access, you're good to go. You can also send data, digital data over it, and including ICF forms and things like that, if you're doing emergency work, using this guy as your data source. And the software is a Java-based application, so it'll run on Linux, Macintosh, or Windows.
No license required?
No. This is a cousin to that, and it functions a little differently. This guy is really just a gateway to the internet, it's got a little receiver, transmitter, transceiver built into that antenna, and with that you just plug it into your laptop or Raspberry Pi. In my house I have it running on a Raspberry Pi. It's up all the time, so anywhere I am on my property I can use my HT and play DSTAR to any reflector or repeater I want. You only need a couple milliwatts to cover, you know, if you have an acre or two property. And this is what Dwayne's looks like. He's got it packaged nicely in a little Raspberry Pi and a metallic case and a little Wi-Fi dongle. So you can put this in the car or take it to work with you or whatever, and as long as you have a mobile hotspot, you can drive all around the country and be talking to your buddies or doing whatever on DSTAR. And it works very, very well. I see a lot of people doing that.
So that links up to a Wi-Fi hotspot wireless?
Yeah, like in my case, I just put the my AT&T Wi-Fi hotspot in the back seat, and along with the DVAP plugged into it, and the radio on super low power to save energy, and it just works great. You can drive cross country and have continuous coverage.
So it uses the internet, so that kind of works like a repeater through the internet?
Yeah, exactly. So from the radio, you make a selection of what reflector you want or what call sign you want, and voila, it's there. Any questions about that? We're going to show you a few more options too. This is one of the best things to happen recently to digital voice and ham radio. This is a little thing called the DV4 Mini that was developed by, I believe, the German amateur radio community. And it's sold by Wireless Holdings, a company down in Florida. And it's only, I think, $129, right? Something like that. And this is one right here, just that little stick. And it has an antenna that you attach on the end, and it also has a transceiver in it. So you can operate that just like you do this. But the bonus is that in addition to being able to do DSTAR reflectors and all that with that thing, you can also do DMR and Yaesu fusion. So of course you have to have the radio to match that. So that's really a low-cost solution, especially if you want to experiment with all three of the different protocols, and it works very, very well. I have mine hooked up into this little Raspberry Pi with the TFT display, and I can control the whole thing from the front here, boot it up, change reflectors or repeaters or whatever I want. And that's the thing, what it looks like here. This will, I understand, soon be coming out with another DVSI chip on it that will let you operate this without a radio, just like you can the blue dongle chip. So that capability will be just like this one has. So you'll be able to do Yaesu fusion without actually owning a fusion radio.
Which is Yaesu, right?
Pardon?
Yaesu.
Yeah, the Yaesu fusion C4FM protocol. I understand it says a 70 centimeter only, but I've heard that there's supposed to be a 2 meter one coming out, but you know, if you're using it at your house, it's pretty unimportant as long as you got a radio that's capable of matching up with it. This is another way that you can do DSTAR and never buy an Icom radio. So this is just a regular analog radio. This RF link, this is the DSTAR, going to go through that. It passes through this guy, goes into this GMSK modem, and right out to the internet. And with that one, you know, that radio might be capable of 25 or 50 watts on external antenna, so you can get much wider coverage than you can with a little DVAP if you need it. Any questions about that? And there are a number of companies that make that. I think that's the Moencom one shown. There are probably 4 or 5 variations. Yes, sir?
So you got an HT.
Mm-hmm.
Say your analog radio is in your vehicle?
Now, when you qualify that with the HT, it's a DSTAR HT.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your analog radio is accepting that signal?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's passing that right there?
Right. Now, the thing about the radio, it needs to have a 9600 serial port on the back, which many of the Yaesus do, and some of the Icoms.
Plug in your node adapter.
Mm-hmm. And people do HF with that as well, with a setup like that. Okay, 8. Always remember 8. Why is 8 important? Because at some point or other, if you decide to play with DSTAR, you'll try to connect to something and not have 8 characters in your character string, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, and it absolutely will not work. So when you see connecting to something, if I want to do Reflector 30 Charlie, for instance, it would be REF030 space CL, and C means the C module, which would be the 2-meter module, and then the L says link to that. So those are the commands that it uses to do the routing and setup. Now this shows what that looks like. There are always 4 elements in DSTAR. This is where you want to go. That's the UR, that's the distant thing. This is the gateway, so I'm going to gateway out of that. This is the B side, that's what this is going to come into via RF. Is that clear? And in each case, each one of those fields has to have 8 characters in it. This one's a little different because it ignores the slash, and when you see that at the end, everybody puts their own radio type usually. So if I'm running my Icom I8880H, you put 880H. So, and that shows up on the bottom of the screen. We'll see some screenshots that will show you that. So you see that, and you also see the guy's location and other information. Yeah, this is very important. Any questions about those 4 fields and what they are and how you use them? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Some other characters that you have that are special are the U for unlink. So when after I've been talking on a reflector and it now goes to hanging up the phone, I put that U in that last character. It says kill it. Some repeaters respond with an I command, and that will say information. So it says I'm linked to reflector 1 alpha, or not connected. And then the E is an echo test. So, and I'll show you that in here in a little bit. So we actually go talk through the DVAP, and it will echo back everything it heard from me. Before you can get on, you can buy a DSTAR radio today, go home, and you can play DSTAR as soon as you charge it up and get on the right frequency. But you can talk through the Norman repeater, for instance, but you can't get out and play on the network. You first of all have to register. And that's what we're looking at here in this next slide. This is the registration template. And again, this thing will really screw you up if you don't know. Remember what I said about the 8 characters? There are places in there where you have to pad some characters when you register. So pay particular attention to that. And this is where you fill in the information. So it's possible for you to create numerous aliases in here for registration, but it's not necessary and sometimes confusing. So you only want to do one registration. So if you buy a new radio or something happens, don't go out and re-register, because it'll cause untold havoc and take forever to get it straightened out. You just register one time.
Is there a cost to that?
No, it's free. And here's where they talk about the spacing, and this is where they refer to them as terminals, but don't go crazy and request a whole bunch of them. Just do one. And some more cautions. Here are some great sites if you got your little pen and paper there. These two right here will tell you pretty much everything you want to know. And I'm going to go out to those and I'll show you what they look like. The Yahoo groups, there are probably a half a dozen different ones of those that deal with DSTAR and DSTAR software. So I'd encourage you to register with those. And there's not as much activity as there once was because people have got things figured out, but you can look back in the archives if you're having a problem and see what somebody else did about it. And then of course Icom. Any questions before we go into a voice demo? Next thing we're going to do is show you how to program and some of the more unusual parts of things will help you get going. Go ahead and give me a test count there, Dwayne. It should come through there. I want to give you an idea what it sounds like. I don't think, did you get to hear what DMR sounded like in Yaesu Fusion? No? Good. So it's pretty clear, right? And normally you'll hear that quality of voice, but more so than the other two protocols, DMR and Yaesu Fusion C4FM, you hear a little bit of artifacting, they call it, where you'll hear a little bloop, bloop, little chirp or something, and that's just where a data stream has been disrupted or transposition of signals or something of that nature. And you know, you learn to live with it. It's not that bad, but with a good station, you don't experience it usually. Okay.
So is DSTAR what you run into sometimes, like when I'm scanning and you land on a frequency, it's got some good strength to it, sounds like a truck engine running?
Yeah, they all have a little different sound to them, especially if you lock off 5 kcs or so off of the fundamental frequency. But that's pretty much it. That would be probably a digital signal or RFI of some type coming from any number of things, consumer products. Any questions before we go into the demo? Yes, sir.
You were talking about the modem that you hook up to your transceiver going to the internet, correct? Is that what it was?
The modem goes to the computer, which in turn goes to the internet.
Right. But is there a modem that you hook up to an analog transceiver that would go on like to the DSTAR repeaters?
Not that I know of, but we're going to get into something similar to that might be of more interest to you. Recently, the Wireless Holdings people down in Florida announced a thing called the DV4 Home. Anybody know about that? Pretty neat box. And it comes in 2 versions. One that you can operate as a standalone, for instance. You can just plug that into the internet, plug in your headset and mic, and you're on the air. Then there's another version that lets you plug in the DV4 Mini into it, and then you can use your DSTAR radio or your Fusion radio, and it does all the protocols. So. And then the high end that's not been released yet, at Dayton we saw an HT that's produced by the German hams, and I don't think it's even got a nomenclature, did you? But it is purported to be able to do DMR, which is very common in Europe, DSTAR and Fusion, and probably P25 I think as well, all in one box.
That's a mobile unit.
Yeah, it's called the mobile. And it will be, they said about $1,200–1,300. So.
They're just calling it the DV4 mobile instead
Yeah,
of
right.
DV4 home.
Right. Yeah. So we got to see that, but it wasn't operational. And they didn't have a timeline for when we'd have that. But that'd be sure nice, because Dwayne and I both have got collections of HTs for DMR, Fusion, DSTAR, everything. And it'd be nice to just have one box.
That's called a DV4, that's the model number of it?
Which one?
The DV4 you were just talking about?
I was talking about 2 DV4s, actually 3. But there's one that they call the DV4 Mobile that hasn't been released yet. And that's the one that'll do everything, they claim.
P25, is that what the police use?
It is, yeah. APCO, I think it's called too. Any questions before we start messing around here? What I'm going to do now is just hook up my DVAP and okay, I'm just going to close this down. This Wi-Fi in the hotel worked pretty well too.
Yeah, it is working pretty well.
Yeah. Okay. Remember I said in the beginning that there were really a couple pages that were really very useful. This is dstarusers.org. And what you're seeing here is a real-time list of all the people that are being heard through the gateways. And you can see there's Milan, Italy, Spain, Poland, Canada, Italy, Brazil, and it's all the same. Now, you guys that have HF rigs and do HF, you know right now the bands are pretty dismal, right? But guess what? The propagation's fine on DSTAR. Hasn't been affected. So there's a lot to do there. This is useful. You can go do the repeater directory and you can find repeaters in your region or in your area. It shows you all the characteristics of them.
So, like the 51A, that's the anniversary one, is that right?
Yes.
Is that the one that has the ability to find repeaters in
I'm
your
going
area?
to, thank you for bringing that up. So the ID 51A I have, this guy right here, I wish I could show you the screen, but I can't. So let's just say hypothetically I'm flying to San Francisco, get on the plane here in Will Rogers, and the darn plane has to land for some problem, and I'm going to be there a day. Well, not knowing I was going to stop there, I probably would not have programmed in frequencies that I might want to use for DSTAR there, right? Or FM analog. This radio has all that built into it. So all you do is you walk outside the airport while you're waiting at the rental car place, get a good fix on it, a couple of seconds worth of GPS, and then you go down and say nearest repeater. And you want to do DV or FM. So you pick DV, and voila, you just hit the key. Now everything is configured for you to talk and use that repeater. It just doesn't get any better than that. So this list gets updated periodically, and we're going to show you another site where you can pull the current one down. And of course you can always roll your own too. But that's really handy. So likewise, you can go say, oh, I'm in Denver, so give me some 2-meter repeaters or 440 or whatever. Pops it right up there. So now everything's set. The PL tone, offsets, the whole enchilada. Isn't that nice?
That's as long as there has to be a DSTAR repeater there.
If you're going to do DSTAR, yes. But like I said, the FM analog repeaters are also built into that.
So is it the data already on there? Just
Yes, these have a...
that's based on your GPS location.
yes, all of the repeater fields show the current GPS location, so that says, okay, here I am, so what's nearest to me, and it lists those for
So
you.
periodically you have to update that list.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
And you may have some particular reason to add something or delete something. You know, maybe you're never going to go to Germany, so you don't need the German one. And these have a little SD card in them, so you can use that to save your configuration, which is very handy if you mess something up to restore your radio. It also records the last heard stations. So if you want to call them, you just click on them and hit the PTT and phew. So we didn't talk about it very much, but thank you for bringing that up. That's one of the main selling features. So the Icom ID 5100, the 51A, and I guess the older 51s do too, but I don't think they had FM in them. So what you want to do is put an SD card in your DSTAR radio if you buy one, and then you can store all this data. It also has voice recording and voice announcements you can create in the thing. It's a very powerful little tool. So once I key up, we'll be able to go back here and you'll see me come through here, and we'll check on that in a minute. But right now I want to show you one more site that's very useful. That's www.dstarinfo.com. And there is a lot of stuff here. Remember I said there were like 76 reflectors? And here they are. Here's a list of them. So from your location, once you get online, you can connect to any one of these. So if you're multilingual and you want to check into Poland, for instance, and check out how good your Polish is, there you are. Have at it. A lot of them are organized by frequency, and if you want to just get on and listen around, probably Reflector 30 Charlie, 1 Charlie, 4A, I think it is, and in Oklahoma, 52 Bravo is a big one, or 55, 52. Actually, isn't that the one in Elk City, 52?
Elk City is 66.
60, that's right, Route 66.
We're 52, we're Liquid.
Yeah.
We own that.
So what a reflector is at the last session they talked about the notion of a room, what's very similar to that, or just a repeater if you want to think of it that way. But somewhere there's a computer, and what it's going to do is everything it hears coming in, it's going to send out to all the other connections that are attached to it. And and some of these we can look at, and you'll see that there are, hundreds of people connected. Any questions about what we're looking at here, or how that works? So you can use this closest repeaters to find the repeaters in your area. Nets, there's a list of nets. Sunday night at 7 p.m. on Reflector 1 Charlie is the International DSTAR net. That's kind of cool to listen to or participate in, because you hear people from all over the world. And it's just like they're right there in the room with you. There are files made up for your particular type of radio to help jumpstart you or download all the repeater information and reflector information. So you can go to this site, download that, and upload it into your radio. Or you can just not even do the radio, pull the chip out, put the chip in your computer, put it on there, and then pull it back into the radio and suck it in.
Did that last night, it took about 5 minutes.
Yeah. They don't update it all that often, so you may want to do that. Are any questions about this? I urge you to, if you really are interested in DSTAR, is to go through this and just look. I can't enumerate all these things, but it's an extremely useful tool. Let's go into the next section here quickly. On the right, remember we talked about those 4 elements? The one that's not listed is my call, and you've got to put that in your radio before anything good will happen, so they just skipped over that one. Most of that stuff will be pre-programmed for you, though, from the memories and the download like Steve did the other day. This describes those fields we talked about the other day. Remember the G for gateway. and the C refers to the module you're going to, A, B, and C. So if you connect to Reflector 52 Charlie, and you think you're going to talk to people on 52 Bravo, it's not going to work that way. So you've got to be on the same channel. This is, remember I said the A, B, and C, the modules. A is the 1.2 gig, B is the UHF 440, and then 2 meters on C. And example.
Might point out that's not ABC there, it's not ABC in the reflector.
That's right. That's right.
Somebody gets confused.
Yes, that's right. This is the actual DSTAR linking command, not the Thank you for pointing that out. And CQ is the magic says I use the repeater. So when you connect to a reflector, let's say you go over to Richards and you buy your brand new radio and you get on there and you make your first connection to the reflector. After you've made that connection and it says, comes back and says connected to, you then have to switch over and say use reflector. If you don't, every time you push the PTT, it will initiate another connection, and the guy at the other end will not hear you. So you got to go back and use that. That's a function. I don't know why they didn't make that auto magically go back to use reflector or the CQ when they made the connections made. Everybody understand what I said about that? That's very important, because if you're like me, you'll forget to do that from time to time. And say, why doesn't this work?
And on 2 meters, it is 5 hertz off. I mean 5 megahertz offset on 2 meters.
No, it's a 600. It's a 600. Same split. And again, most of that stuff's already in there for you in the settings. You really don't have to mess with it. You should know what it is, but you don't need to configure it necessarily. Okay, so here he is. This is the call sign. These up to here. This is the up to here rather, and then he's linking to the A module, and this L says link, which means create the connection.
A lot of us created sequential channels, one to connect, one to talk, one to hook. And that way you just swap channels on your radio to control it.
Did you get what he said there? What you do is create another memory field, and you just rotate the knob and it says, now go use the repeater, instead of going through configuration menus and things to invoke something. So you already have a pre-configured channel. You switch the VFO knob and boom, you're there. Or memory. Remember I said the U is for unlinking, so here's where he wants to tear down his connection. And you have a lot of ways. The newer radios are easier to deal with, a lot less problematic, a lot more functional. And this can really get you messed up until you think it out. Like the gentleman in the back said, this is where you create a section for a particular function. So this one is to unlink. So every time you're connected, you just rotate the knob, click on the button, and it says, okay, we're going to unlink, and sends the unlink command.
The button, is that the PTT?
PTT, yeah. So like I said, you can do the I and the echo test. We'll do an echo test here in a few minutes. And so it's something useful for troubleshooting, and you can say, hey, what do I sound like on the air? And not all repeaters support that function. That's a sysop selected item. This is something you probably want to carefully think about if you get into DSTAR, is how do I want to manage my memories? There are a lot of reflectors and repeaters and things you'll never see or use, so why have it in there? So just keep it trimmed down to what you need and use. Echo test. This is what the fields look like in the Icom provides software for configuring your DSTAR radio. I don't think many people use it. Some probably do. The RT system stuff is a lot easier to deal with and I think a lot more user-friendly. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay.
One of the users of that.
Oh, okay. All right, this is what the front of the ID5100 looks like. And this is a class act. This is a great radio. The nice thing about the menus in the configuration, they're very similar, if not identical, to the ones in the ID51 handy talkies and 31s. So when you get accustomed to using this, you automatically know how to use the HT pretty much. This is something that the DR mode, I don't think that was originally in the early DSTAR radios that Icom produced, but it's really nice because it greatly simplifies the programming and operation. And that, by the way, is the screen of an ID51 right there. That's what it looks like. So when you make a connection, you'll see the guy's call sign, type of radio, and location coming across the bottom. It'll scroll across. And of course, that's optional. If you want to turn it off, you can do that too. But in each one of the Icom manuals, there's a function on there's a page on using the DR function. You really want to understand that because it'll help you greatly. This talks about the functionality. Remember I said the CQ thing is what you're going to use while you're using a repeater. It's also called local CQ in the menus on Icom. So, remember I said all that information is programmed on the SD or inside the internal memory? This is where you pick all those. So if I want to contact a station that I talked to a week ago, I can just scroll through here, find his call sign, boom, it'll initiate the connection. The near repeater, the second element down, that's the one where the GPS says, I know where I am, let's go see what repeaters are near me, and gives you all the parameters. Here you can select a reflector just by rotating the knob, and this will roll up, and then your cursor over here, change it to A, B, C, or D, or whatever you want, and then you hit enter and you're good to go. This really doesn't get much easier. And see, the recent ones that you connected to, this was the last reflector that guy connected to, 25 Bravo. So he can cursor down and hit that one, it'll select it and make the connection. That's what it looks like when you're connected. One thing to look for is that guy right there, and that says you're in the DV mode, so you're set up for, it'll be FM if you're not in the digital mode. And then this icon here, not flashing, tells you that you have a lock on the GPS, and then the little rectangular block to the left of that says that there's an SD card in there. So as a mobile, that's really a nice radio to operate. This is again the Icom programming software screen. And that you can use it for FM and DV. It's not an either or thing. You can mix and match here. So you can export these as CSV files if you're familiar with it. You can put it in a spreadsheet. You can move them all around, sort them, whatever, and upload them into the radio. This is the part where Steve said he downloaded the stuff into his DSTAR radio from the DSTARinfo.com website. It's where you tell it what type of radio you have. You want to get a list of memories. what frequencies you're interested in, and whatever else is germane here, and you click download, and voila, it's all right there for you. Does this sound easy to you guys? There it is again for the Dayton area. And Dayton, by the way, if you go to the Hamvention, has a dedicated reflector. I think it's 38 Charlie, isn't it? Do you remember?
Yep, it is.
So every year you go up to Dayton, all the stuff's right there.
It's only active then during Dayton?
No, it's active all the time, but they dedicate it exclusively for Dayton Hamvention.
That one lists those 3 radios. Does it also do that on the 7100?
You can answer that.
Yes, but the 7100, yeah, they're about the same.
All these menus are very similar. So when you're used to one radio, I'm talking about the current generation, you can jump from one to one, and it's pretty much intuitive what it is. And you can save all these on your SD card. You can recall them. You can save your configuration, pull it back into the radio. Really handy. We talked about that. There's the DSTARinfo.com website. You really need to spend a lot of time here. This is really, really useful.
One of the things I found on that DSTARinfo.com website yesterday was a DSTAR calculator.
Yeah.
And I told it where I was, and then it told me the repeaters that were nearby that I might be able to touch, told me what my screen should look like when I got done. So that's why I played very little with this, and I got it working last night. There were 2 guys talking last night. One was in Lawton, the other was in Billings, Montana. And they were coming in just like they were in the room with me. So.
We already talked about the ID1, so we're going to kind of blast through this. Okay, here, there are not just the dongles I showed you, the blue one there, produced by AA4RC. Yeah, I'll pop out here in a minute. But there are quite a few others. There's a STAR DV one, and then there's, what's that, the DV3000, right? The middle?
In the middle, yeah.
Yeah, DV3000. Universal Digital Radio sells these. You can go out to their website and look at them. But there's a whole plethora of these things. When I started, there was like one choice. And that's the DVAP we talked about again. How to use the DVAP. I'll show you that quickly. We're out of time, but we'll go through that. These things are tremendously useful, use very low power. You can leave them hooked up and give them a dedicated task like running your DVAP, and they just work 7 by 24, 365 days a year, and they're only $35. Buy the RPI-3 though if you're going to get one. This is a packaging similar to what Dwayne has, that you can throw it in a car or truck or whatever and take it with you. This is about how to configure it, where to get the images. This slideshow, by the way, and several others are online that show you all that. And that's the DV4 Mega right on the left. Yeah. See how the one with the antenna coming up out of the middle? That's a daughter board that sandwiches on top of the RPI, Raspberry Pi 3 or 2. This is a DHAP. This guy's really cool. It's a hardened, if you will, DSTAR hotspot. So it's got the Raspberry Pi, battery backup, the radio module, the DVAP, and indicators and things on the front. It's pretty nice. And you can use your imagination to configure these things any way you want. There's sky's the limit in your budget. Like I said, that DV4 Mini is about one of the greatest things since sliced bread for digital comm. That's the new radio. That's the DV4 Mobile that Wireless Holdings is going to be selling here soon. Here are the big guys. These are the 2 HF radios that Icom sells that do DSTAR. 7100 on the right. This is the 9100. And the prices on the 7100s have really come down. They're like 900 and something, 950 or something like that.
Is there a lot of DSTAR going on HF?
I think it's largely experimental. They have a net that's, I think it's every night or something in it.
Every night, I think, except Wednesday.
Yeah, and they go around and everybody says, well, I heard Jim Bob, and no, I heard so-and-so, and, you know, compare notes. But I think it's largely experimental. Here is a really neat thing. There's an Android app that if you buy the Icom 5100, for instance, that we saw up there, and you buy the Bluetooth module, and you have Bluetooth in your little tablet, Android tablet, this is a free app from Icom. And we drive to Florida a lot, so I gave my wife a job to keep her busy. So as we go through different towns, this is a map. And of course there's a GPS in there and it knows where you are. So you just see, well, here I am, and there's a repeater icon here, so you click it. It automatically makes the radio QSY to that frequency and configuration, and you're already good to go. Nice? It also can be used to send images. Dwayne and I have sent pictures back and forth, text messages. You can configure the radio for, you can actually operate the whole radio pretty much from these screens you've seen before, just by clicking on the icon. And it's free. Now the painful part is the Bluetooth module is like 90 bucks or so for the ID 5100. But it's a nice integration. What else does it do? That's pretty much it, I guess. But it's a nice thing. This, if somebody thought it'd be cool to produce, I don't think anybody uses it. It's just a thing to monitor status of the network and various things. This I alluded to earlier. It's a thing called DRATS. It's a free program. You can use DRATS without even having a DSTAR radio, but you can use it with a dongle or with the radio and the appropriate cable. But what it does is it goes up and it brings up a panel that has a talk section and then a receive section, and then over on the right it shows all the stations it hears. So people connect to this routinely, and you find them camping out and exchange information or whatever. But one of the cool things is if you're supporting an emergency system, there's an editor that comes with this for editing ICF forms. So you can create all the forms you need to manage some kind of disaster. And what's cool about it is when you send an ICF message, the guy at the other end has that same ICF message in his computer. So what gets sent is only the data to populate that form. So it says, okay, this string of data goes in field 1, which might be subject or something. This piece of data goes in field 2. It doesn't send the whole form layout. So that works pretty well.
While you're right there, the CQ that you've been talking about, you also can put in somebody else's call sign and it will go find them. You use the DRATs trying to handle traffic,
yeah,
like for HEPA laws or something.
And one of the other things too, yeah, and thank you for mentioning it. There's another thing too that's interesting about DSTAR that I don't think any other protocol has, is let's say hypothetically that I'm here and I want to talk to Dwayne. I know he drove to California somewhere. All I have to do is put in his call sign to connect to him, and the last repeater that heard him will attempt to make that call to him. It's called call sign routing. Very powerful function. Yaesu Fusion doesn't have that, and I don't think there's any DMR instance that has it either. And that's one of the things that, this being a more mature protocol, I think is personally more useful, although Yaesu Fusion sounds better, so does DMR. But in terms of scaling well and what you can do and actually producing something, this I think is by far a lot better. So, any questions before I do a real quick demo?